Hello, friends, and welcome to the Nugget Climbing Podcast. This is your host, Stephen Dimmitt. And today I'm sharing a segment of a new bonus episode that I put out yesterday with Maddy Cope. Maddy was on the podcast this week, and she and I ended up recording a second episode, which is a 2.5 hour long masterclass in endurance training. In our main episode, we promoted a new online course from Lattice Training, which covers all the different elements of your climbing training, understanding how to implement principles and create your own programs and things. And in exchange, Maddy was kind enough to join me for this bonus episode and do a deep dive on endurance. We talked about a lot of the common misunderstandings and pitfalls of training endurance. And she ended up sharing 3 of her favorite endurance training protocols from the online course. These are workouts that you guys can do just by listening to this episode, and you can apply them to your own training and try them out at home or at your gym. This is a super valuable episode. We recorded this for patrons who support the Nugget, but I wanted to share the first hour with you guys today just to remind you that it is live and that you can go listen to the full thing. So you'll hear us banter for a little bit and talk about some of our sends over the weekend right after we recorded our first episode. And then Maddy shared some of the key takeaways from our main episode that she'd been reflecting on over the past few days. There were some really great nuggets in there. And then you'll hear us start to dive into the masterclass for endurance training. If you want the full thing, once again, it's 2.5 hours. We ended up focusing on the endurance topic for about 2 hours and covered a lot of ground. And she shared, again, 3 protocols that you guys can try in a lot of detail. So if you're not ready to buy an online course, this is a great option. And the full episode is available right now for patrons. You can sign up at patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. Just takes a few minutes. There's a free trial, so you can literally go listen to the full thing for free right now. And all of the Patreon episodes are available on Spotify. So once you sign up, you can sync your account with Spotify and listen to the subscriber version of the show. You can also do the same thing on Apple Podcasts. It's really easy. There's a video that shows you how to do it. It's all super slick. And then you can listen to ad-free episodes and all the bonus stuff all in one place. So yeah, I would love it if you'd check it out. Once again, patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. And there's a link right there in your podcast app. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and please enjoy Maddy Cope.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Hi, Maddy.
Hi. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks.
Nice. You have a good weekend?
Oh, I did actually. Yeah, had a really good weekend.
Nice.
You caught me on a good day. It's good after a good weekend.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, we made the effort to go up to Northumberland. I don't know whether you'd know that. It's the sandstone. When you spoke to Dan Varian, he lives up there. It's like the sandstone. Some of it's almost like Fontesque.
Yeah.
And I did this boulder that I've wanted to try for ages, which was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's called Northern Soul. It's like a highball, kind of 7A plus. So what's that? B7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was really good. Like, it was scary. It took a little bit to commit. Yeah.
Some of those...
when you get up high on your first go, and basically the top out is like sloping, and you're just there and you're like, I don't want to be here. And I found myself here without quite thinking about it. and I jumped down, and and like you bail off, but you're like, "Whoa, that's hard. I'm not doing that like that many times."
Yeah, totally.
That's cool. Really had to commit to it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I've some of the things I've seen video of Dan doing and Ned in that area with those pretty hard mantles up high. They look really scary. They look spicy, like heel hooking and just pawing your way up slopers, like at 15 or 20 feet or whatever. Stuff that Dan's doing.
That's exactly what this was, but obviously much easier than what they do. But cool. There was that bouldering film where they were doing all the high balls, and I have no idea what their knees felt like after that. But I mean, super impressive. But it wasn't like highballing where they just weren't falling. It was like highballing and they were really committing at the top. Mm-hmm. This was sort of one of those where you could stand there a little on a foothold and be pouring the top, but you had to then like, scuttle onto a heel, that sort of scampering climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Like last time, we were talking about the dancing and being so precise. That's the sort of thing I'm not good at, just having to like
The wrestling match.
grapple just maul a bit. Like there isn't a specific foot, but you just got to throw your leg on and just grapple. So that was really satisfying. Yeah, that was good.
Nice.
And then Sunday, actually, I just did some music research. We're going to Berlin soon.
Music research?
Yeah, we're going to Berlin, going to go nightclubbing in May.
Nice. What does that mean, music research? Like just listening to some of the songs to kind of warm up your dance moves? Like what does that look like?
It's more like listening to the different DJs that are on.
I see.
To see who you like what they sound like.
I got it.
And stuff like that.
You haven't picked out.
But it was actually really fun. It got me psyched. That's a bit of a different trip. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
How about you? What did you get up to?
It's Monday morning here, and I was up kind of late last night, but it was a really fun weekend. I worked Saturday, just worked on today's podcast episode. That was great. And the weather's been amazing here. So it's been kind of punctuated by going on walks outside and doing some work around the house and things. And then yesterday I had a really fun climbing day, worked in the morning a bit, and then made plans with friends to go meet up at one of the projects I've been trying. It's called Thunderdome. And it's really
a sport project now.
Bouldering. Yeah, still bouldering.
This is still a boulder project. Yeah.
Not
made that switch yet.
It's like a 7C or 7C plus, V9 or V10. I think it's V10, but there's kind of like two different camps on the grade. But it's really hard for me. I've climbed a lot of 10s and some 11s here in Leavenworth, and for whatever reason, that one just had my number. I tried it like 4 or 5 days in the fall and kind of got close, but not super close. And then this was day 3 this spring, and there was one missing piece. I've never had this before, but the hardest part of the boulder was the transition between moves 2 and 3. I could do move 2 reliably and move 3 reliably, but getting from one body position to the next was the crux for me. And so most of my session was just focused on really figuring that out. And then I finally linked moves 2 and 3 together and then sent a few tries later.
Oh, nice.
And I'm psyched. I also really want to do the low. The low's a pretty hard 8A and really good. It adds, I don't know, maybe like a V7 or something, or V8 maybe. Something like that into the stand start. Just adds a little fatigue before like 3 very precise kind of power moves, And anyway, I'm really psyched. I kind of thought like, am I ever going to do this thing? Am I ever going to figure this one out? And it felt like
it's quite cool. It sounds like it came together quickly, I guess, as well, once you worked out that transition.
Yeah.
Bouldering can be nice like that, can't it? Because it's like,
it kind of clicks and then
so distilled, it can click and then you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it gave me hope. I was like, oh, okay. I felt the movement click, and then I did it when I was pretty late in the session and like probably fatigued. Kind of did it on a rapid fire actually, which isn't usual for me. And I tried it, rested a minute and a half, and tried it again because I'd kind of like missed the first move. And did it and was like, oh, okay, I could actually see myself doing this from the low now. Like that's really nice. It seems possible, and I'm excited to go back and try that fresh. But so that felt really fun.
It's quite a cool challenge, that sort of thing, isn't it? Where you know some really sort of precision type moves and then you have to add some in. I quite like that. That's like a fun execution challenge.
Yeah. I find the first move, it's not a very hard move, but it's really hard to get the right hand crimp perfectly. It's kind of a rounded, precise hold, and you're just kind of like, you're grabbing like specific grains of texture sort of thing for it to feel good. And I find it so hard to get it perfectly from even from the stand start, just doing that as the first move. So I think that's going to be really difficult, climbing like 6 or 7 moves into that and then getting that hold perfectly. Yeah, but
nice.
There's other beta options. I've got lots to experiment with. Yeah. I might actually end up using different beta for the low than for the stand. We'll see. I don't know yet. But I was like, it might make more sense to do it my friend Kevin's way, because like you get set up in the start, but like your left hand is the important one and it's not set up as well. So maybe I'll try the other. Yeah, I don't know. But I'm excited. It's a really cool project.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Nice to have some cool local projects for you when you're nesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And the weather's
It
just
adds to
been
the nest.
amazing. It's been so good. It was like perfect yesterday, which I think usually
It was nice here at the weekend, and now it's just raining.
That's good
Standard.
though. That's what you want. Like you can just
Yeah, when you're working.
pivot to work. Yeah. Not feel like you're missing out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Should we dive in here?
Yeah, like one thing I was just going to quickly run by you, and it may just totally be in my head, but after last time I was a bit like, oh, I feel like I didn't quite pull some of my experiences to like a core just takeaway that people can use as a bit of a nugget. I know that's what you like to do, and I think sometimes when you're just talking about your own personal experience, you don't as naturally be like, this is the core things that other people could do. So I don't know, I've been thinking about it a bit, and I was like, oh, maybe I could just round up what I talked about in the podcast last time before we sort of segued into the core stuff, and maybe just try and be a bit more like, this is how it might be for others. Like, this is the core. I mean, you can let me know what you think. I thought I could go for it, and then you can always, if you think it adds, you could add it in. If you think it doesn't add, you could just not.
Let's do it.
That's fine.
Let's go for it. Yeah, I've got plenty of time this morning, and it's always great talking to you. So yeah, let's go for it, and then we can pivot into a deep dive into endurance. And then we can pivot into
endurance. Yeah, I'm psyched for that. That'll be good.
Okay. Yeah. What did you? What specifically did you have in mind from our first chat that you wanted to kind of tie a bow on top of?
Well, I guess the main thing for me was that quite a few of the things that like I've talked about they're quite personal. They may be quite niche to people listening. People might not really resonate with, things like that in experience with social media or sponsorship or like comfort. But maybe I could just draw it back to a few key like concepts that I think are at the core of each of these things that I've kind of experienced. So when it comes to like comfort versus discomfort, I suppose, because obviously we spoke about discomfort, that's something that us as climbers who are really into like growth, challenge, all of that, obviously we love that discomfort. It really allows us that stretch. But I guess what I've experienced, and I do see this in other climbers, is that it can be nice to have what I think of as a bit of a counterbalance to this kind of culture of self-improvement and growth. And I think at the core of it is just the fact that what I've realized and what people might want to think about for themselves is that we're not the same every day. And we're also not defined by any one day of performance. And I guess what I sometimes see people doing is turning up at the crag each day and sort of going into default performance mode almost. They're like, I turn up at the crag, this is what I do. And maybe it's just not the day for that. And if we build up some experience and we reflect on this, we can essentially sort of take responsibility for our own experience and form your own counterbalance, whatever that is. So for me, it was like this pleasure pointing. And that's just because that plays into something else that I value in climbing that isn't just like challenge and growth and that performance. It's just that smooth execution, like being like a dance. But that might be different for other people. And so I suppose I'd maybe just encourage people to think of their counterbalance if they feel they're having, they're getting in, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe a bit of a performance rut or a bit of a default performance approach to their climbing. And there's a few like sort of, they're not really mantras, they're like little conversations I have with myself for those days. And I might say things to myself like, I don't mind what happens, or like, I'm okay as I am. And that doesn't mean that I'm not someone who wants to like still push myself and grow. But for like these days, that's just like the way that it's beneficial for me to look at the day. So I don't know, that's one thing people could maybe think about, like, what is your counterbalance? Do you need a counterbalance? Not everyone does, but like if you think you do, then that could be nice. And then when it comes to the social media, which again, like this is like a very niche experience of mine. I mean, might resonate with people, but I think the main thing for me that came with social media and the sponsorship thing, because I guess they're kind of tied because I was sponsored, I sort of needed to be doing social media, is people could just think about their intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And I think I'm a really intrinsically motivated climber, But obviously everyone's got extrinsic motivations and they're not all bad or anything. But I think for me, taking away social media and kind of therefore sponsorship, I suppose, it felt a little bit like unfogging the glass of my motivation. And I think it allowed me to just really see what I was really intrinsically motivated for and how that motivation was maybe changing over time. And so I guess obviously people can try and have like, I suppose, honest conversations with themselves about like where their motivation's coming from. But I guess what I did with the removing social media is that I like removed a barrier. And the reason I think not everyone comes at it from this angle is, again, because we're all about kind of personal development. I think sometimes we think about strategies to cope with an environment rather than just changing the environment. And I think that to me, it felt like it may be a bit of a failure in some ways. But I also think it's really empowering to just be like, I'm actually just going to change. I'm going to remove something that is also kind of an option that's there. But I think it can maybe feel like a bit of an unpopular view because people feel like, I know I felt a little bit like I was failing in doing that.
You were failing by not being able to like mentally handle your relationship with social media and having to quit it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And, I think, I guess I was a bit like, I've failed at sponsorship, which maybe is kind of true, but that's okay. And I suppose I was just seeing it more as being like, oh, there was something that was maybe starting to stand in the way of like my really pure joy for climbing. And actually it was really not a failure just to think about removing that rather than trying to cope with it. Because I did try, because I guess with Instagram and social and all of that thing, you can look to lean into the more intrinsic parts that you might be motivated for with that. But they just weren't strong enough, basically. As some people, they'll be really strong. They'll like the story sharing. They'll like creating the content. And for me, that wasn't the case. But, I guess ultimately it boiled down to being like, what am I really intrinsically motivated for? That is what I want a really clear view of in my climbing. And I'll just make it clear as well. What I'm doing in my climbing hasn't also changed loads just because I'm not on social media. It's not like I'm like, I'm not bothered about trying hard. I'm still like climbing just
Still
as hard as when I was sponsored. Yeah. Like I actually climbed one of my hardest multi-pitches in autumn. I'm just not sharing it. And it's kind of one of those interesting little thought experiments. I know I've talked about this with a few other people of like, what would you do if no one was watching or you were never going to tell anyone what you were doing? And that's kind of what it allowed me to just be living. I know some friends of mine have had this with like visible logbooks online. That's a sort of similar kind of thing. And then when it came to like being good in our conversation around like maybe what it means to be good and what it means to be confident enough in saying that you think you are good at something or did well. I think the main takeaway here is for people to maybe just build an awareness of how they talk about their climbing, like the language they use and whether it's like judgmental or not. And then there's one exercise that I do, and I get to talk about this with Ollie, which is obviously great. I have like a really close climbing partner to me, who I can feel like I can talk really openly with. But like one thing I quite like to do after climbing days is I guess think about like one thing that was good or that I did well at. And it's not a comparison to anyone else. And it's not like an overinflated thing. Like I wouldn't want people to go away and be like, oh yeah, I should think of one thing that was good and just be like, yeah, I nearly sent my project. If that's like not true at all, that just like probably leads to kind of unrealistic expectations. And yeah, that's not it. But I guess it's maybe thinking about something that was good that is focused more on like the process and just really feeling that sense of kind of owning that thing that you did that was good. Like, and it might be a send like that's great. Or it might be that you just like committed to a move, or like I did a boulder at the weekend and I'm like, oh yeah, that's like not my style, that movement up high. And I committed to it. Even if I still hadn't done it, it was great to have like tried the move, that sort of thing. So I think that can be quite a nice exercise. And it's something actually like maybe with people that I work with, I get them to do, because you could do it for training sessions as well. Like the thing that's good might even just be that you turned up for your session, or that you warmed up well for it, or something. And I think it can form quite a nice relationship with the process as well.
What if I love all of that. What if we each shared our one thing from yesterday? Do you have one thing that came to mind?
From yesterday. Well, I didn't climb yesterday, I suppose. I climbed the day before.
Okay. Yeah. What was the thing? What was the one thing that you did well?
Oh, well, gosh, there were so many. I actually think the one thing from like Saturday when I went climbing was making it happen. I call it like making it happen, is a phrase that I use when, you finish work on a Friday, you're tired, we'd like had a long week, and you're a bit like, oh, we could just like stay around locally and go climbing at like Raventhour. But you're like, the weather's good in Northumberland. I really want to go visit this crag. Let's just make it happen. Get in the van. We're driving till late. You feel crap. But you get there, you stay in the van the night, you wake up, and it was just this like beautiful day. And I think that putting that effort in of like making something happen that is going to be like real kind of food for the soul. That I think it was great. I think even the fact that we were there basically then just feels like a win. So the whole day you feel like very appreciative.
That's awesome.
Appreciative of. Yeah. How about you? What was yours?
I think mine was really taking the time yesterday to understand that transition between moves 2 and 3. Like all my previous sessions on the thing, I would, do all my warm-up links and everything and refresh all the individual moves. And then, it's basically a 3-move boulder. Like the first 3 moves are really hard. There's like kind of a long outro traverse that's not too difficult. But like I can do moves 1 and 2 every time, and I can pull on and do move 3 in isolation every time. So it feels as though I should just give tries from the bottom. But I realized going into yesterday, like I'm really struggling with this transition. I need to understand what is happening. And yesterday I did a good job of really taking the time to do that. I tried that. I just pulled on and like did move 2 and tried to link into move 3 probably 15 times or something. I don't know, a lot. And then it did finally click. It's really, I'll kind of try to describe it to people. It's a move where you're on a right-hand crimp and you do kind of a long shouldery lock off to the left up to this side pull, and the holds aren't opposed very well. So it's a really difficult position to keep tension, and you can't like relax and lean back from the wall. You have to stay really tight. And then you have to bring your right leg up into a drop knee. And if you try to like go square and put the foot on and then turn your knee, your weight comes out from the wall and you fall off. And if I tried to turn my hip too much and kind of like bring my leg up in a drop knee already and try to put it on, I couldn't weight the hold properly, and it would kind of twist my hips too much and I'd lose tension on the left foot. So it was like, what is the arc of my leg? Like that's what I was trying to figure out yesterday, was like, what is exactly the path that my leg has to take to get from one position to the next? And it was cool. It was really nice to really like, focus the magnifying glass on this in between sort of movement and really just like, okay, like, film it on a video, then watch it. Like, what happened? Okay, I see. Like, watch this person, watch that person. What are they doing? That person's not having any trouble with this at all. Oh, they're kind of like, I see what they're doing. Okay, try to do a little bit more like that. It's just, I feel like I executed good patience yesterday and like took the time with the thing that was the most important part for me. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes even just like taking that time to think about what you did it, or what I've found is that the more I think about this for my climbing days, I do feel like the more good my climbing days have got, because I think you form good kind of reinforcing pathways of whatever this thing that you did was, that you have kind of defined as quite good in a sort of process orientated way. And I think it helps kind of your trajectory going forward with that. Like a more climbing one, this kind of reminds me. So I went bouldering the weekend, and like it's definitely not something that I always have the best approach to, because I guess I was a route climber for so long. But yeah, I got basically on my first go on this highball, I basically got to this top out. These were some bad things that I'd done. I hadn't checked the top out despite it being really high. Had to bail downwards, I like had to jump off it, like even like sort of hurt my bum, like smashed the ground. I was like, oh dear. But then after that, I like walked around and checked the top, took off my climbing shoes, properly chilled, spotted other people, let my nervous system like calm down a little bit. When you drop off a high ball and you're like, and I think that was from a sort of a more climbing perspective, that was something that was good. Allowing that time to let the nerves calm, because it was like a delicate slab as well. When you get back on and you're shaking, you're like, this is too soon. But yeah, I think it's something that I think has been really useful. But I guess from my coaching perspective, I use it with people like in their training. So they'll still be process orientated, but it might be about their days out climbing. But I think this can apply quite well to training as well, to help nurture like positive approach and like mindset in the kind of process of training as well.
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense. That's cool. Good stuff, Maddie. I'm glad we did that. There's some great nuggets in there. Nice.
Yeah, I was thinking about it's a little tricky, I think, sometimes if you speak about something that's personal to then also carry it through to what's useful for other people.
Yeah. I kind of want to...
Whereas I think when I have my coaching hat on, I think I'm more thinking about other people, if you know what I mean, like maybe other people's experiences and how that plays out.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that my experiences, any coach probably has this, it really helps you like relate to others, and I think you get quite good at seeing things that you might have been through that's like sort of similar to other people's. Not that you're always like mentoring or anything, but just to kind of be able to relate. But I guess the social media one's a bit more niche because I don't really talk to anyone about that.
Yeah. Like I kind of wanted to riff on that actually, because I had some thoughts come up while you were sharing your experience. And I guess like the thought that came to mind for me was like, I've really noticed that I've had to just be really honest with myself about what I want my relationship with social media to look like and what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. So like what I've realized is, like I have this kind of nagging thought sometimes in the back of my head. Like I know it would be really good for my personal brand for the Nugget, for me to share more of the process on more of the things that I'm doing, to share more of the failures, to talk about them, to kind of bring people into my own climbing a little bit more and like the things I'm learning. And I like the idea of doing that. But at the end of the day, I don't like pulling my phone out of my bag to film all the time. If it's convenient to set the phone up and film the send footage, I'll do it. Like if I think I'm close and there's like a convenient place for my tripod or someone else can film me, great. I'll try to get some footage and then I'll share it. That only takes a couple minutes. But like I wanted to do this for a recent send. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to show like the progressive tries until I stuck this move. But at the end of the day, I like sat on it for like a week and was like, I just don't want to edit this video together on my phone. I just don't want to do that. I don't want to spend more time on my phone. I don't want to, have to buy this like editing app to splice it together. I just want to post it and be done, because that's my personal relationship with social media. Like it would be cool to do more than that, but I don't actually want to spend my time doing more than that on Instagram. I'm happy to talk about my process on the podcast, and I'm kind of thinking about doing more kind of solo episodes and training updates as I'm going into my next like big training block and stuff, and that feels aligned. But yeah, I guess just it's been really freeing to be really honest about what I actually like and don't like about social media, and what is like intrinsic, what's fun for me versus where I'm crossing over into like, oh, I should, that's a good idea. Yeah. I should, that's an opportunity. I should. Yeah.
And I think this is where it's tricky. Like if you have like, a brand, or how you refer to yourself, like the Nugget Climbing. And I think the same when you do have sponsorship, the quality of what people put out on Instagram is awesome. The photography, the footage, how it's cut together, like what people do. And I think that was probably part of the drain for me, because I was like, I'm not into these things. So to put something out there that is sort of in line with what other people are doing, which was where a lot of like my kind of imposter syndrome came from. I was like, I can't do this. This is like not me. Whereas actually it might be different now. Like, not that I'm planning on going back to social media, but you know, if you just have your own private account or whatever, it's not for any visibility or brands or anything like that. Actually, you could probably just put on like whatever raw kind of footage or photo, like some crappy selfie that you take that kind of means something or shows it, and you just be sharing it with your friends. And I actually liked what you said there in terms of like what you like and kind of maybe don't like about social media, because in not having it, there are things that you miss out on. Like I'm not saying that it's all bad. I just think for me it was like quite a useful kind of line to draw at the time, probably because it was quite nice to draw the line with being like, you know what, maybe sponsorship is not for me anymore because of some of the stuff that comes with it, which is fair enough, but that's not like playing into my like positive experience of climbing. Just sort of forgot what I was about to say then. You're just like on a roll, and then I was like, what was I talking about? That's so funny. What was I talking about? I was talking about
like personal
equality.
With like your own personal IG account.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And so there are definitely things that I feel that I am missing out on, and that might be kind of like seeing what like friends are doing. And also I've had like some friends that I don't see that often, and they're like, oh, what have you been doing? Because they're like, we've not seen anything. And they, you know, I guess there is like that sort of nice interaction through social media. So it's not like I just cut it out and you don't realize that there's some things that were like nice about it. So yeah, I do think, I mean, for anyone, I guess it's a balance of what they like and don't like, but it was useful for me to draw a line at the time that I did.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's something I've noticed with social media. Final thoughts, and then we should move on here. But something I've noticed that's interesting is, and I do this too, like when I look at other people's accounts, my friends and stuff, it's so easy to assume that the things that people are sharing are all the things that they're doing, you know? And so I'll get this, and sometimes it's true, like I'll get these comments sometimes when I'm sharing more of my climbing, like, oh, wow, man, you're like really on a roll. You're on a tear. You're like climbing really well and whatever. And I'm like, I'm just filming more of my climbing right now. Like I never stopped climbing, and I send a lot of things that I don't post. Sometimes it like, you know, sometimes it's true. Like, oh, I haven't been posting because I haven't been sending anything, but sometimes I just don't feel like getting the camera out and filming my climbing, and I'm still out there doing it. So yeah, I always think that's kind of funny. It's like, I'm still living, still doing stuff. You know, I've just been kind of more focused on like enjoying it than capturing it, you know? Yeah.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because it's often hard to like really put across, or maybe I just found it hard, but like it also might be sometimes hard to put across the real kind of experience of whatever the climb was and how important it was to you. Because like something, I noticed this, I don't know whether you do, it'll be interesting. But sometimes also the interaction with any given post, it doesn't necessarily align with how special the thing was for you. Because of course it's like other people's judgment on something that you're sharing. And that was always, I mean, it's probably just natural, but like, I guess that was always something I found quite funny with it, because like, you know, and some of it really makes sense, like high quality photos, like get more likes because I guess they look better. But, you know, you also might do something like say for me, kind of on the sponsorship element, I think I was sponsored for a few quite like, not necessarily niche things, but, you know, like head pointing. I guess I was a British female climber who had like sport climbed 8C, head pointed E9 and climbed L cap free, which is like, but they're really niche things. It's not like I crush every time I go out climbing, like not at all. And I'm probably more often than not burnt off of the crack. And especially when it comes to bouldering. So it was a funny thing. I don't know whether you find this as well, like you share things and some people might be like, God, that's amazing. They're like so psyched for this one thing that you share about. And then for another thing, it's like, meh. But you're like, oh, actually, that was really like quite special to me because it was like, it's not my style. Like I literally tried just as hard on this thing. So that I always found funny. I mean, it's to be expected because you're putting something out there for other people to I almost said vote on there, not vote on, but for other people to kind of pass judgment, see whether it like resonates with them, see how much they like it. And that doesn't always totally align with how special the thing was for you. So I think part of that is me doing a bad job at, kind of creating the content.
Same.
I think some people do a really good job of that.
Yeah.
But that was something I found because of my level of creating the content.
Yeah.
I had this mismatch, whereas I think if I or if people are better at creating that, they probably don't see that mismatch as much.
Totally. Yeah. No, I totally relate to that. Like I'll often, I'll share a send video, and maybe this climb took me 15 minutes and I ticked it and it like wasn't a big deal. And then I'll put the same amount of time and thought into the Instagram post where I share the thing that took me like 8 sessions, and like felt really hard to me and I really had to work for it, and it felt like a much bigger win. Sometimes I'll kind of make it clear in the caption, like that this one was more meaningful, but sometimes I don't. And yeah, you always feel like a mismatch of excitement and like it doesn't totally line up with that. And it makes sense. And it's interesting. Like I think the times that I've enjoyed Instagram the most, this is kind of, it's almost a paradox. Like, a few summers ago, I did this boulder called Eternia in Upper Chaos Canyon in Rocky Mountain National Park. It took me 11 days. It's a huge hike. There's a lot of like shenanigans with hiking pads in the talus field and stuff. I was like using a friend's stashed pads that were at a different boulder that was really far away. It was like a whole thing. So it was a ton of effort to do this boulder. And I shared a lot of the process. It was like day 6, like made these 3, like got it down to 2 overlapping links, like day 8, really struggled today, day 9, blah, blah, blah. And because of that, it was really special. Like when I did it, people understood kind of the gravity of it for me personally. And I felt very seen. It felt really fun to share, and I felt really seen, and it felt like we were, like me and my friends were celebrating together, and that felt really good. But at the same time, like it was a lot more effort to do that, and I don't always want to do that. That time I did, it came easily, but sometimes that adds extra pressure, and sometimes I'm like, am I just pre-spraying and getting like kind of a dopamine hit out of sharing this? And is that going to take away from my desire to do it? Like there's a lot of different elements at play there that make me not always want to do that sort of thing. And yet, it was like the best experience that I've had sharing climbing on social media. So I'm like, I don't totally know what to do with that. I'm sure I'll do that again when it feels right, but sometimes it just won't feel right, and I'll wait until I've sent it to share it, I mean, that's when it comes to organic, it's nice because it is storytelling, which I think is really nice. Like I love storytelling in climbing and just generally, like it is nice to get like a window into other people's experiences. I just think that it probably comes down to like, is it taking away from your experience, and how much is it? Because it might not be, it might be kind of insignificant. And I think that's where you can just build awareness around it. And I think, I don't know, especially for me, it sort of built up slowly of being like, oh, actually, this is taking away from my kind of my presence in my climbing. A bit like you said there, you're sort of thinking like, oh, like I should just get this. And then you maybe like take a photo and share it. And then I'm like, oh, but what if I never want to come back to this room? Like sharing it feels like a bit of a, I don't know, like you then really have to stick with it or something, once you if you just decide to like end the chapter on this project, where does the story go? It doesn't go anywhere. And for you, that might be totally fine. Cause like, I know I've like slightly chosen, not that I've closed the like chapter, but I might be like, oh, it's not really working with my life to go and do, try this project again. And yeah, I think from a social media standpoint now that seems like a bit of an incomplete story. Whereas for you, that doesn't maybe feel like an incomplete story. Right. Yeah, I definitely have a bit of that.
I know what you mean. It often feels like once you start sharing it,
you're like on the hook.
You don't want to feel, you don't want to feel like kind of hooked into sticking with something.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that with a few more boulder or more sport routes than boulders. I have that with a few routes that I've like shared the process on. Maybe I've like gotten to the point where I've one hung them a bunch of times.
Mm.
Felt really close. They didn't work out. Haven't been back. It's been years, you know, and it's just like, I felt kind of weird. Am I going to go back? I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it is kind of funny to share the process like that, like like really close, one hanging this thing, you know, wish me luck, and then just never mention it again. People are like, sometimes
That's
people assume
totally
that.
me.
So sometimes people assume that you did it, and it's like, sorry, no.
Yeah. So it's
But
funny.
it feels weird to bring them back up. Like, what are you going to do? Post another video and be like, here's me failing again. Didn't do it, in case you guys were wondering.
Yeah. It's hard to know how to like keep that conversation going. I think it's just the consistency as well, that especially if you're using social media as like, if it's because you're sponsored or if it's for the nugget or even because you're a coach, like whatever it is. I think it's the consistency. And I know other coaches or people who kind of need to use social media for their business really feel this. It's like, it's such consistency is needed with it. And given that it's like creative and it's content, like, I don't know, creativity and consistency don't always go hand in hand, because you want to feel inspired and stuff like that. So I think it's hard to do well. So I definitely feel you on that. Something I found as well is because I guess maybe some of the climbs that I'm really motivated for, like say this one I did in autumn, this multi-pitch, it's hard work. I don't know, to even think about using my phone to video any of it, to share it. It's like, it's hard enough work as it is in terms of just like hauling, setting up lines, going up, working pitches, all of that.
Totally.
I'm just like, when is that time? In those moments where I'd maybe get out my phone, take some photos or film it, that's the moments when I'm just like, and just like look around and get a bit of just that, and to enjoy the kind of being on this like big wall at the end of some valley.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I'm never willing to like ask people to move to get like a photo, like a video of a boulder, you know, like if there's a lot of people there, I'm just like, okay, well, if I send today, then I'm just not going to have video. That's okay. I'm amazed at the lengths that some people feel motivated to go through, but it's way harder with roots too. It's way harder to, you know, get good footage or content when you're multi-pitching, especially. But sport climbing, same. Like a video from the ground of you sport climbing is like, it's the worst. It's like so uninteresting most of the time, you know?
Maybe like a really close mate would watch it.
Yeah.
And be psyched
if they want your beta. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's the odd couple of things I've been back on for photos, like trad routes as well, like maybe not the safest things. And that's kind of a funny thing, which like obviously like the photos are nice and I guess I felt comfortable enough to do it, but I don't know, I quite like now that once I've closed the book on like a project, something that's been really fun, there's no need to go back onto it for photos. Because obviously I do take some photos, like me and Ollie take some like belay selfies, like maybe we take the odd photos, but you know, they don't have to be good. They're like photos for us. Like there's something I might print off and put on my office wall, you know. They're not really good photos to share to the masses.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great. I enjoyed that. It's good stuff in there. Should we pivot? Should we dive into our chosen topic for today? Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of a mini masterclass on endurance and share some of the stuff that's in the course for you guys listening. And I'm curious, I guess we should start with just having you share why you thought endurance was interesting to talk about. I guess, what are people missing when it comes to training endurance? Let's kind of start with just getting your thoughts on what you notice and what you see working with clients and just kind of like working with Lattice in general.
Yeah. So I think endurance has a kind of, it always starts with that scratch your own itch thing. Like I really enjoy endurance in my climbing. You know, big multi-pitches, big volume days, trad climbing, hanging on for a long time. So I think when I started learning about training for climbing and started doing it myself, endurance was a big part of the structured training I did, I suppose. And it really, I found kind of the physiology interesting. I found the mental aspect interesting as well. I think there's a certain resilience that comes with endurance, hanging in there. And I kind of enjoyed that side of it in terms of just like providing a challenge, a mental challenge that I enjoyed. And then from, I guess, a coaching perspective, one of the reasons I find it interesting is that for the most part, with the people that I work with, I really have to sort of work at convincing them. I have to work hard for that buy-in to get them on board with endurance training. And a lot of them, endurance is very like kind of pivotal to their climbing. I mean, I'm working with someone at the moment who wants to climb El Cap in a day. Yet to get them on board with endurance training, that's like not that easy, which is interesting for me as a kind of, you know, working with clients, trying to understand where this comes from, trying to make it, I guess, a nice, clear link to them, like for their goals. Sometimes this involves kind of explaining a little bit of the science, just to kind of that for some people can really help with buy-in, you know, kind of helps them understand it. So I think it's interesting from that perspective that in really most of the people that I've worked with through Lattice, strength and power is really seen as king. And I do get that. I understand that it's so important, but it's interesting that it's on such a higher pedestal above endurance. That's interesting to me. And that obviously might be the collection of people that I work with, but I do generally see like a trend in that, in going in that direction. Obviously, there may also be a bias there for the people who come to Lattice for training. Yeah, I don't know whether you've done a lot of it, how you feel about the endurance training versus strength training, whether strength makes up that kind of really big bulk of yours. But yeah, that's, I guess, why I find it interesting from a professional perspective. And I just think that people are missing out on a few things if they overlook endurance training as well. You said there, like, what are people missing out on? And I guess we could dive a bit more into these, but I think some of the key ones are, obviously, I guess, it's like the physiological adaptations of endurance in the forearm. I guess we've talked about other muscles in the body, but for climbers, forearms are like something we're obviously obsessed with. And I guess things that like branch off that are a little bit less about kind of the physiology are, well, they're kind of tied to it. You get more chance to practice. So I think maybe people are missing out on being able to handle more volume in their climbing, which could give you more time to practice, which gives you more time to work on movement and get really smooth with technical execution. I think it can mean that you miss out on just being more consistent in your climbing. I've seen this a bit, like if people maybe totally disregard endurance, don't do any of it, they can be a bit more inconsistent in their performances. I think that could be tied to just poorer recovery between attempts at climbs, but also between days. Obviously, that's kind of anecdotal, but it's just something that I've noticed. And then I think a final few things are opportunity for skill development. I think that endurance training sessions that we can do can provide a nice scenario to like nurture some skills and characteristics in climbers that are harder to do in strength sessions and harder to do in like structured strength sessions. And one of these, I call it like pump panic, or like pump-induced panic or something like that. And this is when like you see climbers, and this could be boulderers, by the way. I use the word pump to collectively refer to that feeling of imminent fatigue, or that feeling of being on a timer, that I'm sure everyone can relate to. And that can totally be boulderers as well. This whole conversation is relevant for boulderers and route climbers. But that, you know, just endurance training and providing scenarios where you can just feel that kind of ticking timer can help you literally just not panic. You know, you're just more familiar with the sensations in your body. And it can help you through not panicking, maintain execution. How many times do I see climbers, actually, maybe even especially boulders, on a longer boulder, they get into the top out, but it's still hard. That time has been ticking down, totally panic. All memory of the beta goes out the window, their feet are everywhere. So I think there are some skills that endurance training can nurture, which is good. And then I think the final one is more like logistical, and it's just making good use of training time. So like, I guess what I get quite a lot is that people kind of come to me, they start working with me, and I know lots of climbers like to dive into the protocols they want to try and all of that. But ultimately, one of the first things I'm interested in as a coach is, what does your time look like? What is your schedule? What is actually realistic for us to fit in? And what time slots do you have? And if they're on back-to-back days, what does that look like for the types of training that we want you to do to work towards your goal? And I think if people totally disregard or, overlook endurance training, they miss out on filling some of their training slots and making good use of them with a form of training that would be useful. It just might not be their like first go-to of like, I'm a boulderer, want to work on strength and power. Yet they have these slots that it just doesn't work to fit this, like the sort of intensity or the quality of training that you need to, that you might need more recovery between. So I think having some polarity essentially in your training can be really useful for people to make the most of their training. And actually it could play into your strength development in a way that you didn't expect. Like I have seen this, especially like focus on the forearm here. So like not always doing it climbing, which we can get onto, but having people who want to work on strength, finger strength, do, it's got like a low end aerobic type forearm work, helps you recover. And actually they've developed strength really well in their fingers. And I think that's probably like bringing in more of, they can raise the line of the kind of force they can produce with their fingers that is sustainable, but they're also just developing more capillaries and really improving their ability to kind of use oxygen in the forearm aerobically, but also recover their anaerobic systems, which, if you're wanting to really be a strength climber, a boulderer, like you are going to rely on those a lot, but people can often neglect to think about what happens when you step off the wall before you pull on again. So before your next go.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of good stuff there. Yeah. I kind of want to riff on some of that. I think more and more people are starting to understand the value of recovery sessions. Like Emil Abraham's no hangs protocol is just one example that comes to mind. Like I've noticed a difference. If I'm in a strength training phase, and to answer kind of your question that we cruised right past, I think at this stage I definitely have a strength training bias, but I'll get more into that. I also have kind of a unique background of training for a boulderer. Like people that are joining the podcast now think I'm a boulderer, but I was primarily a sport climber for like 7 years, and I've climbed like almost 100 513. So like I almost never I like can't think of a single time that I like punted an easy finish on a boulder, like that. Anyway. But yeah, like I've noticed that if I'm in a strength block, if I'm just doing a hard strength day and then completely resting until I'm fresh to do another strength day, that's less efficient, and I feel less good than if I do some easy hanging or some easy climbing in between. It could be the day before the hard next training day, or it could be the day after the previous one, or it doesn't really matter. But if I do something just to get the blood moving, it seems to help. Yeah. I'm kind of planning that into my my next block, like to dive into like the efficiency thing. I think that's huge. I'm going to be getting a home wall here. I'm getting a tension board too, which I'm so excited about. I've been talking a lot with the guys at Tension, and I'm so excited to spend the next few months training on it. But I'm not going to be able to climb on that thing hard as much as I want to. I know myself. I know that I only can put in like 2 really good quality hard days on that board a week. And then I can climb more than that, but I have to be really, really smart about going to the total opposite end of the spectrum. And and doing some easy climbing that's a lot more movement and skill and maybe capacity focused. But you can be really clever with it. Like something I'm really excited. This was something I noticed in your course. You guys have quite a few options for like aero cap for aerobic capacity training. In the past, I've done mostly arcing. Like spending 20 to 40 minutes on a tread wall, just like climbing, just listening to a podcast. You're bored out of your mind. You're just like suffering. You're just climbing forever, and that's really helped my sport climbing. But now that I'm focused on bouldering goals, that doesn't really feel like it makes sense. But you guys have these awesome options in your course about how to kind of tailor that same energy system towards your goals and make it work for whatever you have access to. And something that I'm planning to do in this next training block is really focus on strength and power like 2 days a week, and then have a day a week where I'm really targeting the length of time on the wall that I'm anticipating needing for one of my projects later in the summer. Like I'm planning to try this long boulder. It's called Bear Toss. It's in Rocky Mountain, and it's a long link up. It's like a V10 into a V11, and it's 23 moves. And I'm planning to watch some videos of other folks climbing it and crunching the numbers on how long it takes, and finding kind of an average of how long it takes to climb those 23 moves. And then picking an aerobic capacity session that is in that same time frame. Maybe it's like, I can't remember the exact protocols, but one of them was like, 2 minutes on the wall and 2 minutes off, and you do rounds of that or whatever it is. Pick something like that feels appropriate and matched with my project, and just start to kind of build the like capacity to be able to work in that sort of time frame. And then as I get closer and closer to actually going and trying it, then I can start getting a lot more specific. I can start doing the anaerobic capacity and start doing like circuits on the bouldering wall and doing really hard link ups and things like that, or 4x4s or whatever else. But yeah, I think that is really underappreciated. And I'm kind of always amazed at how many people I see, boulders specifically, because I've been bouldering a lot recently. They just it's such low hanging fruit, like watching someone like Thunderdome. I was there yesterday. I think in the past few sessions, I've seen 2 or 3 different people punt the top out. It's like a V4, and like you can easily do it as a warm up. Like it's easy. I mean, part of that's just tactics. Like they haven't rehearsed it very much, but I'm like, there's no reason to fall off this V4 unless like a hold breaks or some fluke happens or something. But I think some people so neglect everything that's outside of the strength and power realm that yeah, it's like a failure point, and it's just so preventable. Because yeah, you can train for that on your rest day basically and still get some really good value out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's loads of points in there that I'd like to kind of like build on a little bit. The last one there, I think, is interesting in that, because it is lower intensity, you can build this around other things you're doing and like maintain your performance. One thing that I think climbers struggle with when it comes to developing endurance, the aerobic system, is a kind of timeline problem. And it plays a little bit, I'm going to bring it together with what you said about your background as well. So there's a bit of a timeline problem, because what I see a lot when people come to me and they're really focused on their outdoor climbing, which I totally get, but their turnaround between seasons is short. So what they end up doing is they come off the back of one season and they really don't have that long. So what they want to do is top up their strength and power, do whatever kind of more specific goal-like kind of power endurance, utilization, whatever you want to call it. They want to do those sessions that really look like their end goal, a bit like when you talked about doing 4x4s or whatever. And they're just not really allowing themselves the time to develop that kind of more foundational endurance, that kind of aerobic system. But actually, because of the low intensity that is needed to work this session, you can maybe continue to do it like throughout your season. I actually wonder whether people could play the long game a little bit more and kind of invest a bit of time and see a real difference there in their climbing. But it was interesting what you said about your background in sport climbing, and that obviously means that for you in your bouldering, maybe you've not had to work on your endurance for quite a while, because that will stay with you. And also it will stay with you. You'll maintain it through your bouldering. So once you've built up some of that and you can handle more volume in your climbing, you will kind of keep the aerobic system ticking over, because you'll use it to contribute to your climbing. And you'll also use it every time you step off the wall. Our aerobic system is what is replenishing our anaerobic systems. It acts like a bit of a waste bin for the metabolites that you create when you work anaerobically. So you will be maintaining that, which is also nice for people to know. I'm not saying this is like a never-ending story of just like endless arcing or whatever, but when we look at people and we neglect their background. So what I see quite a lot is people come to me and, they're seeing what the pro climbers do, the pro sport climbers who have their seasons, and then they talk about their training, they get back to training, and they do focus on strength and power.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that free teaser of my Masterclass episode with Maddy. We went on to talk for another hour and 40 minutes, I believe. There's a lot more really great stuff. I share some more examples from my own climbing and training and some questions that I have. And Maddy talked me through some advice, and I think it'll be relevant for you guys. And then she went on to share 3 endurance training protocols that you guys can apply either at home or at your gym. I think there's an option that will work for anybody listening, no matter what your level or no matter what your facilities you have access to. Yeah, basically 3 different options for training the same type of thing, depending on your goals, your facilities, and what sounds most fun for you. So if you want to check that out and listen to the rest of this episode, you can go get it right now. It's available for patrons who support The Nugget at patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. It just takes a few minutes to sign up. It's only $5 a month. There's even a free trial, so you can go listen to the rest of this episode for free right now. And when you sign up, you'll be able to sync your Patreon account to Spotify or to Apple Podcasts, and you can listen to the subscriber feed on your favorite podcast platform. It's super slick, it's awesome, and it's a great way to support the show. All right, thank you all for listening. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Much love to all of you, and we will see you next time.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.